This is going to be a patch doing over here in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. I'm going to show you how to do a patch in an hour, and these are the tools we use to do the patch with. You're going to use a 5-minute Durabond made by USG, and you're going to need a hammer, screws, mesh tape, mud pan, and 3 trowels. You always put something down so you don't spill nothing on the customer's floor. And this is the way the patch is going to go. Just keep it on that until I get over here. Now come down here, John, and show me putting this in here. And just explain what I'm doing, John.
Right now he's mixing the 5-minute Durabond in his pan
First coat.
for the first coat.
You have to be sort of fast with this, or the 5-minute Durabond will set in your pan. This is not something a handyman should attempt. You should try to use 45 minutes. If you've never used Durabond before, it'd probably be better if you just used regular drywall mud. But being as we guarantee our patchwork in an hour, we use a 5-minute Durabond. You have to mix this stuff real thoroughly and get all the lumps out. The first coat is always a building process. You want to build out all your humps. And the first coat usually doesn't look very nice, but like I said, it's a building process. If you don't build your first coat, you'll have a hump in the ceiling and the patch will not be done correctly. You want to grab a 7-inch knife, get your ladder set up, and make sure all your preparation is done to the patch before you start. You want to leave mud on both sides of the tape, and then put your trowel on it to make sure, see which side is humped and which side isn't. Like I said, you've got about 3.5 minutes to get this on here with 5-minute Durabond. You want to get all your edges down, even though it's the first coat. You want to get all your edges down and make sure that you got all the humps out of the joint. You don't want to leave any humps. You want to get it all with the first coat. gonna get John to hand me a 10-inch knife. And that way it doesn't leave as big a lap mark all the way around. That gets it pretty, for the first coat, this patch is pretty. It didn't have too bad of a hump, but it had a little bit of a hump. So it took about a whole pan in a 14-inch pan. As you can see, I'm using a 14-inch pan as of a regular pan is only 12 inches long. This right here was some busted tape that we're repairing for the customer. And then we're going to go over here and also take care of some other things that the customer had that we needed to put a little mud on. These are all water damaged areas that was caused from an upstairs leak. Like I said, when you're using Durabond, the first coat's not going to look as good as you would expect because it's a building process. Then we'll move over here and put a little mud on this bad spot here. There's sometimes things that you see that the homeowner will not point out to you, but if you have extra material, you might as well take care of it while you're up here. All right, then you always wash your pan out thoroughly. If you don't, where'd the trash can go? If you don't, it will leave a film in the mud pan and it'll be harder to get out later. Best thing to do is just make sure when you wash your pan out, when you're using 5-minute Durabond, make sure that you get every bit of the mud out, because if you don't, not only is it going to be hard to get out later, it's going to be a little of that material that's already been set up will make the next batch set off so fast you won't be able to use it. Next, we're going to be going over here for the first coat. And we've got a basic stress crack. It's usually in a 2-story house. It's usually in the bottom floor, in a hallway, or it's at the top of the steps. Almost 100% of the time. This stress crack has been prepped, cut out, and remeshed. And we will be reworking this next with 5-minute Durabond. We're going to go back over here and get ready to mix some more Durabond. As you can see, this patch right here is setting up, and when I get through with the stress crack, this one will be ready for the second coat. Here you go. Now again, I'm using 5-minute Durabond. I'm only going to mix up a little bit because that stress crack will take about a pan of mud for the first coat. You want to always bust out both sides of that stress crack and make sure that it's good and coated in for the first coat. Again, it's just a building process and it won't always look the best on the first coat. I've got it mixed up. When your Durabond's a little thin, you always just take you a little handful of Durabond and sprinkle it on there and it'll thicken it up. You don't want 5-minute Durabond to be so thick that you can't spread it. But you don't want it so thin it falls off your knife neither. Alright, on the first coat on the stress crack, you're usually going to use a 7-inch knife. And you're going to run the middle and both sides to make sure that you don't have a hump in the ceiling. As you can see, there's a crack right here where when the house was originally hung, the board wasn't hung correctly. So, without having to take the board down, we will have to put extra mud in. You take and run the middle first. That gives you somewhat an idea of how far out you're going to have to come on the sides. And again, this is a building process. If you take all your mud off on the first coat, you're defeating the purpose of even putting any mud on it at all. You always want to leave enough mud because we have devised techniques that allow us to be able to back trial Durabond. We will be demonstrating that here in just a little bit. And that should be good for the first coat. I'll come back in 10 minutes. And always when you have extra material, You always want to use it. So I'm going to take this over here to these patches that I started earlier, and I'm going to run it out on the ceiling. And with each coat, you always go wider. Usually 6, 7, 10, 12, but I use 6, 7, and 10. I have a little bit left from this, and I will take it over here and fill in any humps that I might see on this big patch. And this saves you a lot of time when you use material that's almost set up. Like I said, if you see little places that is not in your price, but you can fix while you're here, you might as well fix it first. When the Durabond gets too hard, you always want to throw it away. It will not bond if you don't. And a good drywall man, he'll always keep his hands clean also. But as you can see, that's only the first coat, and that patch is looking pretty decent. All of this is ran out with USG 5-minute Durabond. It will get it has been taped, and it will have 3 coats of Durabond on it, and back troweled, water sanded with a wet rag, and back troweled when it's all said and done. That's how we guarantee all of our patchwork in 1 hour. As you can see, that's the first coat on the stress crack. Most houses have one, especially 2-level houses, and they do have to properly be finished. Most of the time you need to cut them out, replace the tape, and rework the mud. We're going to go back over here to the big patch, and I'm going to start the second coat on the big patch in the kitchen. All right, we're going to start now with the second coat of Durabond on the kitchen ceiling. I always, if you want your Durabond to set up a little faster, I always use real hot water, but that's just my preference. You always want to stay near some water, so if you need a little more water, you can get it in there as fast as possible. Especially using 5-minute Durabond, you don't want to let it set, because that'll set your bath off in about 2.5 minutes, and you won't have time to use the Durabond. You always want to mix 5-minute mud by the pan. You never want to mix it in a bucket, because you'll never have time to run it. This is the best way to run the 5-minute Durabond, is just run it out in your mud pan. As you can see, the 5-minute Durabond goes on smooth, just like regular drywall mud, if not smoother.
September 9, 2005, just before 11.
this back and forth a couple of times to make sure that you get all your humps and waves out. But you can when it sets up, you'll be able to back trowel it. That's the good thing with Drywall. If you know anything about Drywall and you have experience using it, you can back trowel it and smooth it without using no sandpaper, just water and your trowel. I'm gonna head over here and use as much of this on this stress crack as I can. This will actually be the second coat, and this is the good thing about Drywall. Instead of sanding, all your waves can be troweled out if you don't wait too long in between coats. And any air bubbles you have, you can fill them in with the same coat. Like I said, this is taking a lot of experience. This takes expertise and a lot of experience to know how to do this. It's not something that you can just pick up and do in one day. I'm going to use the same mud and go right back over top of it. Like I said earlier, I've already built the mud up, so now all it is more or less getting it ready to paint. Sometimes you have to rework it till you get it just right. It'll come together. Now let's move over here to these patches. If my Durabond hadn't set up too hard, we'll be able to catch this last coat with this mud. But it has. It's not gonna, when it gets this hard, you won't be able to use it. So we'll have to mix up
Here,
some
here,
more
let me have it. Let me have it. Let's leave it on the
for
pan.
the third coat. It's always good to have a cleanup guy right with you when you're using 5-minute Durabond, because you're moving so fast with the Durabond, you don't have time to do any cleanup or anything else. I'm waiting on my partner to get the tools cleaned out, and I will be applying the last coat to all the patches that I'm working on today in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. You see that 6. Now in between coats, or waiting on your pan to be dry, we've devised techniques to where you've seen a little bit of it on the stress crack a little while ago, to where you can back trowel the Durabond and use the same mud on that you was using to be able to back trowel this and get the air bubbles. If you haven't never used Durabond, you're going to want to let this stuff set up and just leave it alone until it's dry, because you will make a mess of things if you don't know what you're doing. Here you go. My partner will be done cleaning the tools in a few minutes, and I'll be applying the last coat to everything. The last coat needs to be not real thin, but pretty thin Durabond, and you want to put it on and pull it right off to get it slick as ice. Alright, here, John, take this, and I'm going to start applying the third coat. Like I said, you're going to want to have this as a little thinner than the other coats. This is just going on and being pulled right off. More of a cosmetic thing than anything. And most of the time on your third coat, you want to use cold water, because it's not a big rush on the last coat to get the mud on. You want to have as much time, because you sometimes have to retrowel and do other things that takes time. So you want to use cold water, because if you use hot water, the hotter the water, the faster the Durabond sets up. going to use a 10-inch knife to apply this, and this will be the final coat. And on this particular patch here, I will be pulling the mud back off the opposite way, from side to side instead of front to back. The reason I'm doing that there is that's getting the whole patch capped off to where there's no edges. Making it look nice and uniform. As you can see, you can't get any smoother than that there. Then if you have a little edge or anything, you just come back and give it a swipe, and that should be it on that patch. Over here, same thing. Just put it on, put it off. See any little edges or anything, just put your little mud on it. And sometimes it takes you a few times, but other than that, you'll be good. You might have to come back and do a little back trialing when it's all said and done, but other than that, that patch is complete. Now the homeowner's got somebody tried to fix something here, and I'm just gonna run him a little mud in here and try to fix this for him. And that should be it. All right, same thing over here. I'm gonna try to get your, I'm gonna try to back trowel this back down. And then put your mud on. Then going to the stress crack, it's pretty much done. Just needs a little attention here, and it'll be done. Just If you see anything, just always run my middle one last time on the third coat, just to get it real good and smooth. And other than the cleanup, that will conclude 1 hour patching with Patch Perfect Drywall and Repair.